Hey everybody, thank you for joining us again for our study in our series of Lent devotionals. And we're now in the New Testament, been here for a couple of weeks now, and we're kind of just highlighting, picking things that I think are relevant to our discussion as we approach Easter Sunday, happening very, very quickly. By the way, who are you inviting? Who are you bringing with you? Who needs to be here? Who needs to be at Bama Church on Sunday, Easter Sunday? Who are you bringing? Bring them, man. Bring them. Okay. We are looking at this crazy, amazing story. Jesus with the disciples at Caesarea Philippi. The way it worked with the rabbi and disciples is the rabbi just kind of talked whenever about whatever was on his mind. His disciples would just kind of hang back and follow him, and sometimes there'd be hours with no talking. Then all of a sudden he'd come across a tree and be like, let me tell you about this tree. Or he'd make a tree wither and be like, this is like Israel, and like all kinds of stuff. Or they'd come across a mountain range. Jesus would say, hey, you see that mountain right there? You can make it move with just like the faith of a mustard seed. And like he just taught based on things he came across. That's what a rabbi does, what a good mentor does when you're hanging out with people and teaching. And so Jesus is walking around with his disciples. They come into this area called Caesarea Philippi. It's a port city, beautiful, very, very populated. But this port city in this area, I believe that when Jesus had this conversation that we're about to read with his disciples, he was at this area that had this this deep cave, an opening to a cave, and I'll show you a picture of it. I'll throw that up here. And I believe that he was standing right here when he had this conversation, because this was like considered the mouth or the gate of hell. That this particular cave was called the gate of hell, and it had these niches in the wall where they would put these false idols that they would worship, these devils, if you were, and they would worship, and they thought this was the gates of hell. And so I think that Jesus is standing in front of these gates, this cave, this opening, when he had this conversation. And this is found in Luke 19. He said, it says, he turns to his disciples and he says, who do the crowds say that I am? And they answered him and they said, which I love that phrase, by the way, who do the crowds say? What's the word on the street about me, is what he's saying. What are people saying about me? What are people saying about me as we're going around? What's the word on the street about me? And they say, well, some say that you're John the Baptist, which is weird because John the Baptist hadn't even been killed yet. Others say that you're Elijah, which means that he's like a reincarnated version of a prophet from the Old Testament. Weird. Some say you're John the Baptist, some say you're Elijah, or one of the other prophets of old has risen again. And then he said to them, and this is the question that we all must face at some point in our life, but who do you say that I am? And you face that question all the time. At least you should. Jesus looks you in the eye, even right now in this devotional, and says, who do you say that Jesus is? What is your opinion of who he is? What is he to you? Who is he? Peter answered, you are the Christ, the Son of the living God. One of the few times Peter opened his mouth and something amazing came out of it. Peter answered, you are the Christ, the Son of the living God. He had an opportunity. He humbled himself and he shared truth. Peter, beautiful thing, beautiful thing. And then he says, I say to you, Peter, your name shall be called Rock. Actually, the Greek word is more like pebble, little rock. You're going to be called a little rock. But on this big rock, this foundational rock, this foundation stone of your confession of who I am going to build my church. And I think he looked backward and maybe even pointed, but the gates of Hades, they're not going to prevail against it. Because of what you just said, that I am the Christ, the Son of the living God, that is the truth. And on that truth, all of the things will be built. And so he begins to launch the church. He says, my church, the gates of Hades will not stand against it. Now that word church is the word ecclesia, which means gathering. It's not a building. It's not brick and mortar. It's not rocks and pebbles and stones. It's not drywall and nails. It's people. That's it. I'm going to build my gathering. And around my gathering, those that are gathered in Africa and Australia and Asia, those that are gathered in North America and South America, those that are gathered in Antarctica, everywhere. Those are my people. Those are my gatherings. And the gates of hell, they can't prevail against it. They can't win. There's no way. And it's not that they can't win because they're so smart or they're so amazing. They can't win because of who I am. The foundational truth that Jesus would say, I am the Christ, the Son of the living God. That when you make that confession, when you stand amongst that gathering, that you are part of the team that cannot lose. And there is an enemy. Sometimes that enemy is us. Sometimes it is the fallen angels of Satan and his minions, his follower, whatever you want to call them, fallen angels. Primarily it's us though. Primarily we're our own worst enemy. And he makes a promise to us. If you'll surrender to me, if you'll surrender to this divine truth, if you, like Peter, will become a little pebble, when that little pebble is thrown into the pond of the world, it will form ripples that will affect even the very foundations of empires. So, each one of us are little rocks. We're little living stones. We're testimonials to God's amazing truth. And as long as our little stone, our little rock, our little pebble is connected to the foundational rock, the bedrock of the statement of Peter that Christ, he is the Christ, the Son of the living God, well, only victory can be had. So, hope that's helpful for you as we continue in this Lent season. If you guys have any comments or anything, drop them below. We'll talk about it. Throw some comments in there. You guys have a wonderful rest of your day, and we will pick up here tomorrow as we continue our Lent devotionals. See you later.